Welcome to another installment of the Far Out Journal Club, a service of the Alachua Astronomy Club. My name is Terry Smiljanich. I'm past president of the club and host of our journal club. The Alachua Astronomy Club is a community of over 200 members, all amateur astronomers and lovers of astronomy in general. We have monthly meetings with guest speakers, plus we have frequent monthly star parties at several dark locations near our homes in the Gainesville and University of Florida area. The Far Out Journal Club seeks to connect the worlds of amateur astronomy and culture, including music, the arts, media, science fiction. We want to hear from people who have bridged the gap between astronomy and the wider community. Tonight, we will meet and talk to Tim Russ. Our host for the interview will be James Albury, director of the Santa Fe College Planetarium. James has a degree in astronomy and was co-host of the internationally syndicated PBS show Stargazers. He currently produces a show called The Sky Above Us. James is past president of the Southeastern Planetarium Association. He is a lifetime member of our club, an honorary lifetime member of our club, and hosts our monthly meetings there at the planetarium. And he has, on a few occasions, he has shown up wearing a Star Trek uniform and once presented a show called The Stars of Star Trek, showing various stars that are mentioned and featured in the series. So when this opportunity to talk to Tim Russ came up, we knew that James was the obvious choice to conduct the interview. So without further ado, James, take it away.
Okay, well, thank you very much, Terry, and thank you again, Mr. Russ, for taking giving us the opportunity to talk to you in person, particularly about all the many, many, many things that you've done during your career. So first off, many of us amateur and professional astronomers became interested in astronomy at a very young age. Often we were inspired by science fiction novels, movies, and television programs. So can you tell us how old were you when you first started and what inspired your love of amateur astronomy and astrophotography?
Well, ever since I was a kid, I was always fascinated by science fiction in general, as far as a subject. And as I got older, space science itself became a fascination for me. So when I really had a chance to get active hands-on in it, it was around when I was in my 30s. It was in around the 80s, late 80s. And I decided to go out just one day and buy a small, portable, low-power wide-field telescope. It was, at the time, I think it was an Edmund Astroscan. And I just drove out to the dark skies outside of Los Angeles and set the telescope up and just started looking for object in the sky. And in particular, the first thing I started to look for was the planets. And once I found them, basically I was hooked at that moment. I was just fascinated by being able to look through the eyepiece and see these objects with the naked eye. And thus began my journey as an optical astronomer. That's what I primarily do. I like the optical aspects of astronomy. And from that point forward, I did what anyone else would do pursuing a hobby. I ended up getting more telescopes and bigger telescopes and on and on and on with the gear and everything else, and kept pursuing it. Basically visual. I had to learn the sky. At that time, there were no, consumer brand computerized go-to telescopes that existed when I started out. You would have to spend a lot of money to get a guiding system for astrophotography and things like that. There wasn't anything small and portable that was computerized for people just to go out and to do optical stuff. At the time I started. So I had to learn the sky, I had to learn the constellations, I had to learn the objects in the constellations, and I had to figure out how to find them just by swinging the telescope around and star hopping and using the charts and all that good stuff. So I did that for years. And eventually they started coming out with the consumer telescopes that were go-to and things like that. And they were not that reliable. They were kind of clunky and they weren't always working the way they should have worked. But, I tried them a couple of times and I went back to just doing the manual astronomy like I had been doing before. And it worked out great. And it got me all the way, as it were, to the point that I am now, where the technology for consumer scopes and things like this has just come miles and miles down the road. And now they have equipment and gear that's practical and much more efficient, much easier to use, and much more powerful and reliable. And it's only going to go, from here forward, So now I'm still basically participating in optical astronomy. I've done the imaging only because of the type of telescope that I'm using now. So just like in the old days when our technology came out, it would plateau and it would just stay the same for a long time. Now, of course, nothing plateaus. It just keeps going and going and going. So this particular technology is only a couple of years old. It's the unistellar EV scope that I use. There are other companies with other different types of scopes that do basically the same thing, which is light stacking and things like that. This particular scope does it very, very quickly, which is what I really like. And it also has an eyepiece built in, which is important. It's still about the eyepiece.
Yeah.
I do a lot of outreach right now with the Los Angeles Astronomical Society. I've been with them about 20 years. And so we do public outreach at the Griffith Observatory and some other places in the city on a semi-regular basis. And it's good to have that telescope to be able to to show people these objects and to participate in this kind of thing where they can actually look into the eyepiece and see these objects. I still have my optical scopes, of course, because this particular telescope doesn't work as well on the really super bright things like the moon and planets. I mean, you can do it, but it's not designed for that. So the optical telescopes are still useful for looking at planets and the stars and also the sun as well. So that's what I do now, and that road, again, was inspired simply by my fascination with space science in general. And there was no one person that took my hand and led me out there to pursue the hobby. I just did it on my own. And more or less, I still do it today, kind of on my own, although I'm a member of the club. So.
Okay. Yeah, because you mentioned how the telescope that you use, you can see really faint objects. And in reading the accomplishments you've done, you were part of a group of astronomers that assisted in detecting 617 Patroclus, which is a Trojan asteroid of Jupiter.
Correct.
And it's a D type, so it's relatively dark, so it's
Yes.
difficult to see. So
Yeah.
and you help them with that in preparation for the Lucy mission that NASA has that's going to be passing by the asteroid in
Yes.
years.
Yes.
Can you give us a little more information about how you became involved with that project? And since you said that you do have a dark adapted telescope, did you have
Yes.
to travel really, really far from where you live to be able to detect it?
No, not at all. The Unistellar community has an organization called Citizen Science that they work with. So Citizen Science program or project will sometimes reach out to you and request, that you participate in a particular mission. They call them missions. And this particular time, the Patroclus occultation, which is what it was an occultation, the asteroid crossing in front of the star, blocking out the light and casting a shadow on Earth. With those shadows that myself and others with my telescope could capture at that time, the NASA was able to get an approximate shape of the asteroid prior to the Lucy probe getting to the asteroid. And that's what they were looking for. So we could participate in that and help them. I actually saw a model of it. They made a mold. They printed out a 3D version of the mold of what it looked like, which is kind of interesting. And so because the shadow in this case was crossing right over Los Angeles, I was able to participate in that occultation. In fact, I did not have to go out of the city. I just went down the street to the park, well, away from the trees because they were in my backyard. So I just down the street, and so I was able to do it from inside the city. to capture that star's pinpoint, and then of course the asteroid crossing in front of it. You can't see the asteroid, but you can see just the star itself being blocked by the asteroid for whatever it was. It took about 4 minutes to get that exposure. They give you the coordinates already built into the telescope. You go to the coordinates, turn it on, and at that moment in time, you set the telescope to image, and then you turn it off, and you've got it. And you send the data to the Unistellar folks. They will crunch the numbers, and they send you back the video. And that's how it works also for planetary, the exoplanet crossings of other stars, and also of asteroids that are near Earth. The crossings of, I've been able to image one of those as well. So they'll do the same thing, but you get the data, and you take those, whatever you've downloaded or actually imaged, you take that and download it, send it to the company, and they'll send you back a video of what you've gotten.
And
And
I
that's
have
how, yeah.
and I have that video here. I'll go ahead and I'll share my screen.
Yeah.
So everyone can see the video that you have. Let's see, application windows, do that one. Okay, so can you all see this video? Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and hit play. So can you all see that little circle there? Yeah, wave your hands if you can see it. So yeah,
There's the occultation right there. There's the transit.
Yeah.
The graph is at the bottom. It's a light graph. And
Mhm.
obviously, whenever there's the object crossing the star, you're going to get a dip in the light graph. And in this case, that's right in the middle. And you can see that's where the lowest point of that dip in the graph is where the actual crossing of the asteroid in front of the star occurred. So they were very happy to get myself and several others of us who had the scope also got the same images, and we're able to send that data to them, and they crunch the numbers and send me back the video. And now they have an approximate size and shape of the asteroid based on what we did. That was very cool to be able to do that, again, with the use of this particular telescope.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Do you feel that your love of astronomy helped influence your acting, producing, and directing of work in the Star Trek franchise?
Nope, had nothing to do with it. I was I was into the stars and astronomy long before working on the show. Voyager was just a coincidence. I could have just as easily been in Baywatch as a regular. Dude, it's just a matter of what, the audition comes in, you go read for it, and that's it. And knowing it's a series regular role, you're definitely targeting getting that part, because that means, long-term work. So it just turned out to be coincidental. I was well into astronomy before reading for that show.
Yeah. Okay. So one of the things about astronomy movies, because Neil deGrasse Tyson has this issue, as do I, that when we see a movie or something that has astronomy in it, it can be a bit grating for those of us who are very familiar with the night sky,
Yep.
that the science is not accurate, because that's what's going out to the mass community. So movies like Gravity, we cringe at that one.
Mhm.
And even Neil deGrasse Tyson had to ask James Cameron to fix the scene when Rose is looking up at the stars because the star field wasn't right. And we know we can actually put the correct star field on there. So, to what extent do you think movies or TV shows have an obligation to try and remain true to the science involved? And are there any that you think did a particularly good job of following the science?
Um, well, unfortunately, and that would include my series Voyager. Same thing. Their priority is to tell a story.
Mhm.
That's their priority. Their priority is to engage the audience with a story. Whatever emotional content they can glean out of it, that's what they're shooting for. The characters, the relationships, the story itself. That is their primary thing. I think there's only been a couple. I think the movie Arrival did a fairly decent job of sort of, depicting what it might be like to try to communicate with an alien species. They were correct in that the aliens did not look anything human, which would be the case. That's accurate. And the fact that that the main goal was to try to communicate with them. That would also be one of the major hurdles of contact with an alien species. So I thought that was pretty accurate in terms of their focus on the film was communication. Their focus was how do we communicate with this other species from another world, another time, another whatever. And that I thought was very accurate. The most of the time, it's just about the the story and the action and the whatever goes on in the thing. So and that's primarily what they're focused on. With us, we did have a science consultant on all of the Star Trek shows, and they would give them information about this and that, but then the writers would take that and then they would expand on that, expound on it. They would, they try to build a story around this phenomenon that they come and encounter, and some of the dialogue and the words and the phrasing, the tech and all that stuff. Is they take liberties with some of that just to be able to tell the story, and that's just the way it is. Very few um, feature films out there are going to be made and developed and written and produced, to satisfy scientists. The majority of people out there are not, into science and not into science fiction as a genre, and not into the hard sciences of astronomy or astrophysics. That's just the way it is. The majority of those people are watching cop shows and doctor shows, man. They're watching that stuff. So over and lawyers over and over and over again. Okay. So that's why the focus is on telling a story rather than the hard science.
Yeah, that makes sense. Okay, so also you've written and released quite a collection of music. I had an opportunity to listen to some of your songs from your self-titled album back in 2000.
Yes.
And the music is available on streaming services like Apple Music, CD Baby, YouTube Music, including some covers you've done of Stephen Stills, Cat Stevens, Bob Dylan. So who would you say are your musical inspirations?
Musically, I was raised during the classic rock era. So I grew up with all the super groups at the time, the rock groups at the time, Zeppelin, Santana, Chicago, and the R&B group Sly and the Family Stone, the bands with the horn sections and all that kind of stuff. That's what I grew up with. So I was very heavily influenced by the mix of all those kinds. And the journey that I took went through all the different genres, all the way up to the present. I started out playing rock, hard rock, then I started playing R&B, then I started playing folk, singer-songwriter acoustic stuff, and then I sang top 40 for a while, and now I'm doing my own thing, as it were, which is kind of an amalgam of all of that. Like I said, some of my heavier influence at the time, Terry Kath from Chicago. I used to love Chicago. Santana, Carlos Santana. I loved his guitar work. I liked him. At the time, presently, Peter Gabriel, also Bruce Hornsby. I like a lot of his material as well. So that it's a pretty wide swath of music and players. Some blues artists nowadays, Willie Dixon, Keb Mo, and a few others I like as well. I like their takes on blues. And a lot of times that's more for performing for me than it is for listening. My choices for listening might be a little different than necessarily the ones I play live. Uh, Playing the music and performing it, there's certain types of sounds and songs that I go for typically, um, especially nowadays. So, but those would be some of the influences I had growing up.
Does your band still tour on occasion?
Oh yeah. Well, we don't tour so much. We play mostly in Los Angeles. We do get some out of town gigs once in a while. I performed in Philadelphia. I performed overseas for a while. I did one tour over there with the record company that I was with, and also mostly in Los Angeles and some in Las Vegas. At least once a year, try to get out there. But it's mostly here in town. We got a residency at one of the clubs, so we play all the time.
Very nice. So, you've done a great deal of work also with children's education.
Mhm.
Can you expound about your passion for children's education, about Bugsters, and some of the other work you've done?
Yeah, my sister, in fact, has her entire company, a bridgeclub.com. She does all of the children's um, producing books and music and all kinds of things. She's been doing this for years, and she asked me to put together a CD and book based on insect characters. And so I created this world of these insect characters in this small village in the woods, in the forest, and I gave them stories, a couple of short stories, and a number of songs. So we have a CD that has 8 or 9 songs on it, and the actual short story itself also has music involved in it as well. And the songs are designed to get kids up off, on the floor on their feet and keep them active. That's what the songs are designed to do. And each song is a different sort of musical style, a different beat, a different groove, a different tempo, and allows them to actually move around along with what the songs are saying and telling them to do. All these activities they're telling them to do. So that's kind of what it is. And it was at the request of my sister to produce that. So I did. It was fun.
Okay, awesome. So I also recently saw a trailer for your newest movie, Star City Murders, on
Yes.
Amazon Prime Video. Could you talk a little bit about that project?
Yeah, well, not giving it away.
Oh yeah.
It's a crime story, and it's about this serial killer who's on a vendetta, and he's going after these people based on his relationship with them in the past, and that's what that's more or less about. And the cops, of course, are trying to figure out who it is and what's going on. And I'm playing the police chief at the time, the captain,
Yeah.
who's in charge of the investigation with the three detectives, 4 detectives that are working on it. And that's basically it. The producer, I knew him from a while ago, and he asked me to come on board and play that role in the piece. So all I'm doing is I'm just doing the acting on it. And the story is not, it's not a long movie either. It's fairly short, but it's pretty cool.
Yeah, you do a very good job at playing the police chief. One of the things I enjoyed about when I would watch Star Trek is seeing how the different actors portrayed leadership roles. And
Yes.
whenever like watching Kate Mulgrew and Patrick Stewart and how they handled their leadership style, it helped me as a manager uh, to be able to relate to employees and some of their strengths and
Yes.
they could improve. So
Yes. Yeah.
do
Yeah.
that with your characters, and that was inspiring.
Yeah. Yeah. It
Yeah.
takes some DNA. Yeah.
Yeah. So also we would you sent me some images and
Yes.
video. Would you
Yeah.
like to do you want to share on your end, or would you like me to share on my end? And
You can share on your end, and I'll just, roll through them real quick.
okay. Let's see if I can do this effortlessly where it won't be. Let's see. We'll open it with this application and see if I can toggle through them. Okay, so let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And it does do video. That's good. Okay, so let's go back to the first one. And okay, so let's share and okay, so here's a picture of uh, our esteemed guest, and we'll go ahead and move to the next image. Okay, so can everyone see this image that of the Dumbbell Nebula? Okay, so Tim, tell us about your about this particular photographic opportunity that you had.
Yeah, this was the dumbbell. These images are all captured by the Unistellar EV Scope 2. That is what I have. The images are captured within a few minutes once they are once the light stacking is enabled. It's very different than doing a photographic exposure, which takes hours. Sometimes several times, more than once, getting these hourly long captures. So this is pretty quick. The dumbbell is here. It's 1,200 light years away. It's a planetary nebula, not unlike our sun. And the gases involved in these nebulas are sulfur, nitrogen, oxygen, and hydrogen. and eventually the star is illuminated. The gases are illuminated by ionized gas. They are ionized by the white dwarf that's at the center of the nebulas. So the next one I have is the Eagle, which is an emission nebula, which is much bigger, 55 to 70 light years across, caused by supernova explosions in the past. In some cases, they're just giant clouds of interstellar gas and dust, also illuminated by the stars that are created in and around them. You'll notice at the center of that one, you can see the pillars of creation, which the Hubble spacecraft had looked at very closely. And this telescope is able to pick those up as well. That is, it's just fascinating to me to be able to get also the color of these objects also in the eyepiece. It's just amazing. The next one was a lot of fun because this was a special object and occurrence that I was able to get because once they reported that this nova had gone off, the citizen science program was able to, once I had the coordinates from the program, I was able to just find the nova very easily. The pinwheel I've imaged before, without the supernova. The supernova was in the summer of 2023. The galaxy is 21 million light years away. It's a type 2 supernova. And so that means the star that produced it was about 8 to 40 times the mass of our sun. And this supernova will probably collapse into either a black hole or a neutron star, more than likely a neutron star. At the end of the day, it outshines the entire galaxy. That's how bright it is. So it was a treat to be able to catch these very special occurrences when they happen. And that's one of the main things that I am drawn to astronomy for, is to be able to view the special, occurrences when they happen, whether it's a comet, whether it's a supernova, things like that, a collision like the Shoemaker-Levy 9 on Jupiter. I mean, to be able to witness that through the eyepiece of a telescope, I don't know. There's nothing better in my book to being able to have those opportunities. That's why I still pursue this hobby the way I do. What's the next image? I think it's a globular
Yes.
cluster, M22. It's about 10,000 light years away, contains about 83,000 stars. It's also one of the closest globular clusters to Earth. And it's one of the first of its kind ever discovered. And I just learned, and just as a side note, the Messier objects, the reason that we have the Messier objects is that Messier, the astronomer, was looking to find comets. And he would find these comets when he was searching for them, and then he would sell the name of that comet to somebody with a lot of money. And that's what he would do. And that's how he made his money, or at least money on the side. So Messier was always looking for comets. And when he found an object that was not a comet, he was not very happy because he can't make any money on it. It's a fixed object. So he would mark that object with his letter M and then the number. And that's where the Messier numbers come from. So that when he found it again, he would know that that's not a comet. And he wouldn't make the same mistake or assumption because he knows that's not a comet. And he wouldn't waste his time on it. And that's why you have the Messier objects, because he's busy hunting for comets where he can make money. So, and these were not things he could make money on. And I thought that was fascinating. I just learned that not long ago. That's the cluster. This thing formed, the clusters formed as far back as 12 to 13 billion years ago. These are very old objects. And strangely enough, about the M22, there are 6 planet-sized objects that have been detected in it that are not orbiting stars. They don't know what they are. 6 planet-sized objects that have been detected inside this cluster.
Wow.
That are not orbiting stars. There you go. The next one, fireworks.
Move over to the next one.
Fireworks galaxy. It's 22 million light years from Earth. It's called the fireworks because 10 supernovas have been observed exploding in the arms of this galaxy in the past century.
Wow.
So there's a lot of activity going off in this particular galaxy. And that is the fireworks. So once again, 22 million light years from Earth. It's a great object to image. It's pretty bright. The next one, My favorite comet, Neowise, came by a little while ago. It was about 3 miles in diameter, the actual comet itself, the head. It's a long period comet, so it takes about 6,800 years to orbit the sun. So we won't see it for a very long time. The average speed of these comets is roughly 32 miles per second. And that is really humping, to say the least. The next object I have is the Andromeda Spiral Galaxy, 2.5 million light years away. It is the closest galaxy to us, and it is sort of moving towards us. They're not absolutely certain that it will impact the Milky Way. It's possible that it may be diverted by nearby galaxies and their gravitational pull. So it's not a guarantee it'll hit us,
Yay.
however many billion years down the line it's going to be. But there you go. The next one is the Whirlpool Galaxy, one of my favorites. 23 million light years away. It was the first galaxy to be classified as a spiral galaxy. Its companion, which will eventually merge with the large one, it causes gravitational waves that squeeze the gases in the larger galaxy, causing the birth of new stars. So there you go with that. The next one I have, I think, on there is Comet Nereus, which is a near-Earth orbit comet. And I was able to image that just in my backyard. I did about I don't want to say three exposures, about 40 minutes each. And I sent the numbers to them. They crunch them and send me back a video, which is really cool. And of course, the last one was the Petriclus occultation, which you guys just saw earlier. And like I said, watch the bottom of the screen. That little ping pong ball is going to get to the lowest point of the light graph. And when it does, that's when the asteroid will cross the star right there. And there it goes. And there it is back. So the occultation was very successful. That's what I have for the images. And I don't know how many people were involved in just getting started in your club. I don't know how many people are just beginning or haven't necessarily gotten their telescopes yet or anything like that. I don't know how many people might be. There are some who haven't, that don't own a telescope, or are interested in getting one. I don't know if there's anybody in that.
Yeah, we have quite a few members. Yeah, I'll let Terry go
Yeah,
ahead and
there's
field
of
that one.
the more than 200 members that we have, I'd say about maybe half of them have pretty good telescopes. Some have really, really big telescopes. And but about half of our group, like to attend the meetings and listen to the guest speakers, and they're interested in astronomy in general. But when we go to our night sky, dark sky areas, we usually, we have an annual Star Fest that attracted, many, many people. But a lot of them are into imaging. And, what I think is fascinating, and you touched on it, is that with the current technology, it's, a dark sky night can't be beaten in terms of its beauty. But
Absolutely.
in terms of imaging, it's almost getting to the point where you can image in the middle of a big city with some of these telescopes and get
Correct.
fantastic images in a
Mhm.
short period of time. I mean,
Mhm.
as you say, don't you agree that the technology, as you
Yep.
said, just is going up, 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 up?
Oh, yes, yes, yes. This telescope in particular, the EV scope too, a lot of the images you looked at, I can get those in my backyard. In the middle of Los Angeles. It's off the Bortle scale at this point. It's ridiculously bright. So, but the telescope is designed to filter the city lights. That's how they designed it. So that you don't have to drive, an hour and a half, hour and 45 minutes to the dark skies. Now, granted, yes, dark skies are better. You're going to get brighter images, quicker images. You're going to get objects that are more faint a lot easier than you would in the city. So if the magnitude of those objects is low, then you're going to get those images much better in a dark sky, of course. But for the objects, and many of them are up there, that are bright enough to be seen in the city, this telescope will do it without having to drive out of your driveway. Um, Really makes a huge difference, having that ability at your fingertips. And I don't, for myself, as far as the learning curve goes, I prefer a rock with a light switch. That's my level of tech. Rock, light switch. So the simpler and easier it is,
Mm.
the better for me. I don't like to waste time trying to figure it out. It's got to be efficient. It's got to work. I want the Amazon profile, if you know what I mean. Okay. That's the way that this telescope basically operates. It works off an app on your phone.
Mhm.
It aligns itself because it knows your phone's GPS.
Mhm.
So there's none of that stuff entering a bunch of whatever. It knows all that.
Are
It
you
just,
able to?
yes.
I'm sorry. I was just also, are you able to project the image that that the telescope is capturing to a large screen to show, like, say, if you're doing sidewalk outreach or something like that?
Yes, you could. I haven't done it yet. The image will show up on my cell phone.
Mhm.
And yes, I'm pretty sure I can project that onto a laptop without any problem. I haven't done that yet, just because I like people to look through the eyepiece.
Yeah.
But you can get it off the telescope, yes. And it's
Mhm.
pretty, like I said, if I do outreach, people want to go look in that thing. They want to look in the eyepiece, man. And the eyepiece is actually really wide field, which means you can be off that eyepiece, back off of it by a couple inches and still see the object. If you have glasses on, you don't have to take them off. So it's very easy to be able to, eye relief is ridiculous. You can see so easily through that eyepiece. It's just amazing. And that, again, one of the added features, which I told them at the very beginning, because I do rep the company. So when they gave me the telescope to represent and to promote, I told them, I said, don't take the eyepiece off, whatever you do, just leave it on there. They do have a model without it, which is a little bit less expensive, whatever. To me, it's all about the eyepiece. And the telescope itself is actually a telescope. It's a 4-inch mirror, with a secondary mirror, primary and a secondary mirror. It's about like 400, 500 focal length, but it has digital magnification, so your objects are big enough to be able to see fairly easily. Some objects it's not going to resolve as well. What was I trying to look at recently? Um, Dang it, the blue, I can't remember what the blue something nebula. There's two of them that were out there. The blinking nebula and the other one. Were not I could not resolve the detail in those with this telescope because of the magnification. It's just not enough to bring them out. You got to have something bigger and more powerful to get to them. You can see them, but you don't get that detail of the actual nebula. Those are planetary nebulas with very bright white dwarfs on the center. And I could not get it. I could not bring them in with this telescope. So hopefully down the line, I'll be able to get a higher resolution of these things, a version of them and whatever. Maybe they've already updated the software so they can get a little bit better quality images. But to be able to bring that in, I'd love to be able to bring in something like that. They're just so tiny, so far away and so small that it's hard to get them.
Okay.
Uh,
I have there were two other images I believe you sent. One was the Explorer Scientific 100
yeah,
millimeter. Yeah, you want to
yeah.
go ahead and
That was
show?
why I was asking about, people who don't own a telescope, and they wanted to at least try to get started, in the hobby. This is what I typically will show people, um, as far as an all-in-one stable tripod, relatively powerful, small package, portable telescope. It's a Maksutov Cassegrain. I still own my 5-inch and a 3.5-inch Maksutov. These are great telescopes for looking at the moon, for looking at the sun, for looking at the planets, individual stars, double stars, things like that. And in dark skies, you can look for clusters and objects like that as well. These are really good telescopes. And the equatorial manual tripod does not require batteries and cables, cords, this, that, and the other thing. It's just a manual tripod with slow motion worm controls on it so that you can just keep the object centered manually. And I use my manual tripod and telescope, the optical one, when I do the public outreach. A lot of times I just doing that because I don't want to be bothered with, something not working. So this I know is going to work. It's just nuts and bolts. And the whole package is $350. So Explore Scientific. Maksutov Cassegrains also don't need to be columnated.
Right.
Typically, any kind of mirror systems you have, a primary and secondary mirror, you've always got to columnate these things because the mirrors will get out of alignment. I've actually dropped, by accident, my 5-inch Skywatcher on the ground, and let me tell you, that is cringeworthy, man. When that happened, that hurt. It dropped on the ground about 4 feet off the ground. It dropped to
Ooh.
the ground, and I took it home, looked at it, defocused one of the stars, and looked in to see that every single one of those rings around the center was perfectly aligned. It never got out of alignment. That's from a 4-foot drop onto the ground. So, yeah, they're very reliable and you don't have to columnate them. They're centered and they're ready to go.
Yeah.
If for some reason they weren't, you could send it back to the company and have them do the tweaks because you can't really adjust these the
Yeah.
same way you can on a typical Newtonian type telescope.
Right. Yeah. Their other image you had was the Telrad finder.
Yes, the finder.
I
Yeah.
like these a lot.
Yeah, Telrads, everybody uses these. That participates in particularly in visual astronomy. As long as the optical tube is long enough to fit this thing on, you're off to the races. They are the best finder scopes. The ones that the scopes companies usually send you that are attached to the one that comes with it, they're usually crap, not that good. These are much easier to deal with. Telrad, the man that designed this device, in fact, he has passed away. It was Kufeld was his name, and the people that were using this, he sold more of these objects, these finders. He sold more of these not to astronomers, but to lighting designers in theaters. They would use the Telrad bullseyes to be able to aim their lights without having to physically aim the light. They would just use the Telrad bullseyes to spot where they wanted to put their lights. And so he sold more of these to them than he did to astronomers, for whatever it's worth. Again, a tidbit. But these are great. They double stick tape onto the optical tube of the telescope, and let me tell you, once that's on there, it ain't coming off easy.
Yeah.
So they're very reliable. It's very simple. Yeah, very simple. They have 3 screws in the back that you can use to adjust the bullseye, and it's a concentric circle of red illuminated bullseye. And you get that on top of your object. You can dim the bullseye up or dim it. You can dim it up or dim it down so that you can see the background stars. What you want to be able to see is the background night sky, what the stars are that you're looking for, so that you're trying to put the bullseye near where the object is you want to find, and there it is. So you can align that with the 3 screws. You can dimmer switch is on the side. It uses 2 batteries, double A's, which will last about 100 years. So that's the device. The other option is a Rigel, Rigel, which is a similar device, but it's more like a periscope. It's got a much smaller footprint. So if the optical tube is not long enough to fit this, you can use a Rigel, and it's the same basic principles. Double stick tapes, 3 screws, dimmer switch, etc. And you can use that as well. These are the best. And for the one scope that I just showed you earlier, this will fit on that soap. It's big enough to fit this. Yeah.
Awesome. Okay, I have a few images I wanted to share with you. This is a model of the Hooker telescope at Mount Wilson
Yes.
that the president of our astronomy club made. He made it by hand out of
Wow.
wood and really plastic and a few other things. A couple of people have already asked, "Is this 3D printed?" I said, "No, this was made over the weekend by Dan." I tease. It took Dave a while to make this, but what we did was we display it in our planetarium because he didn't really want it to collect dust in his garage. So we have a little not really a plaque, but something that to tell you about it. It's a 1/20th scale working model. It does have an objective mirror at the bottom, and it has another mirror at the top that allows you to put an eyepiece in the model itself. And that, of course,
Wow.
is a scale. That's a scale cardboard cutout of Edwin Hubble, so you can see how large the telescope actually is.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and the
Yeah.
level of detail he put in this is exquisite. So the planetarium, we went ahead and we had the case for it manufactured by Faulkner Plastics. It's an acrylic case. Faulkner Plastic is in Miami. And then the pedestal that it sits on was made by one of our professors here at Santa Fe College. He teaches art, sculpture, and so forth, but he is a master craftsman when it comes to wood. So he measured it and it works very well. And it sits in the front of our planetarium opposite from our Campo del Cielo meteorite.
Yeah. Is that the 100 or the 60? Which one is this? The
The
100?
100. The 100.
Yeah. I was just up there about 4 weeks ago and looking through the 100. Man, I'll tell you,
That's
that
on,
is something else. That is really something else.
it's on my bucket list.
Yeah. That is an impressive telescope. No question about it. Those nebulas I was talking about earlier that I was trying to resolve, that I was looking at one of those through that. It was just stunning. And that's an optical right in the middle. It's over here, not far from the city again, but still able to reach through and grab these objects with the naked eye. Jeez, it's incredible, absolutely incredible. Yeah.
So, before I'm going to take a couple of questions from the chat. But before I do that, what would your best recommendation be for inspiring young people to get involved with amateur astronomy?
It's a question of DNA. You expose them to it, and a handful of them may come along. You're not going to get everybody.
Yeah.
You're not going to. There's a wonder and a fascination about this hobby. I would imagine like any other hobby. If somebody came to me about, collecting whatever, I might say, no, I'm not interested. You have to, it has to grab you,
Yeah.
and you have to embrace the wonder and the imagination of looking in the eyepiece and looking so far out into space, light years away in time, and know how vast and large the universe is and how very small we are. You have to understand that concept, and you have to be fascinated with that kind of thing. You just simply do. So you've either got the DNA for it or you don't. And that's it. All you can do with young people is expose them to it.
Mhm.
That's what you can do. So in the public star parties and stuff as a matter of fact, this Saturday I'll be up there at Griffith again with the general public. And they are usually overall very fascinated by being able to look through all these telescopes. They have never done it before in their lives, not even seen the moon, nothing. And some of them are just blown away by this thing. And there's a handful of them every night who will ask, about the telescope I'm using, or ask which telescope would be a good idea to buy. And I have them all on my cell phone. I just show them a picture. They take a picture of it, and they said, "That's what you want to start with."
Mhm.
And then when you get one and you want to join the club, you come in and join the club and bring it up here, and we'll help you with it and how to use it and all that good stuff. So it does happen, but just a handful of people.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah, because Saturn is a reaching equinox, and we've been noticing the rings are getting more and more in line.
Flat, yes,
Yeah,
yes,
so and it will reach equinox the same day Earth reaches equinox. So
interesting.
we're kind of excited about March 20th next year. We'll both be in our, I think Saturn will be going into its autumn, and we will be going into our spring. Yeah,
Yeah, I'm looking forward to when it starts to tilt back the other way.
yeah.
It just has a lot more. It's much more impressive when you can see the gap between the planet and the rings. It's just
Yeah, it'd be interesting to see if there's a hexagon at the South Pole, but unfortunately, because
didn't the probe fly the South Pole or no? Did it not?
it was in darkness,
It
so
was in darkness.
I don't think we could see it. We
Oh
saw the
well,
hexagon at the North Pole, not the South.
yeah, which is fascinating in and of itself.
Yeah,
Absolutely fascinating. Yeah, yeah.
so
Oh, it's
one,
endless, man. It's endless.
yeah. So one of the questions we had in the chat is a Star Trek related one,
Yeah.
and being an actor in the show was over 20 years ago. You may have this may work. So what was your favorite galaxy or planet, more planet, I guess, explored in Star Trek Voyager?
Wow.
That's a
Yeah,
lot.
that's going to be tough because I think there was because I wasn't on, the planet in some of those stories. I was only on maybe for Innocence. I was on the planet with the young people. There was Gravity, which I was stranded on a planet or a moon because I had to be rescued, so I was on there, and that wasn't a really fun place to be. And I'm trying to think. We were stranded when the bad guys stole our ship, and we were stuck on that one world, which was fascinating. I think I could say that might be one of the top ones in the first season. But I couldn't tell you the name of it right this point in time. I think it was the Kazon that took our ship and left us, to fend for ourselves. But I didn't really, I think to me, one of the more fascinating encounters we had, I thought, was with the people who dealt in um, the thoughts, the violent thoughts, and that was dealt with like a drug.
Yeah.
It was illegal to have these thoughts, and they were being peddled like drugs, which I thought was fascinating. And also when we worked with the Hirogen where it took over and made us play out these military scenarios, these conflict scenarios that took place at different times and periods. And that's how they would learn and train their own military tactics and put them together. I thought that was fascinating as well.
One of
Yeah.
the things I really like about Star Trek is that it made you think about our current situation and how would it be in a different theater or a different venue. Because I really liked how a story could be told, and it's almost like a parable, where you say, hey, this is happening here, but yeah, it's actually really happening on Earth, but to another group of people.
Yes, 110%. One of the episodes I directed, Living Witness, has a lot to do with, how the past is interpreted, that results in the treatment of people in the present. In that particular story, a group of members of this society are treated as second-class citizens and scorned and having to pay retribution to this other group of people based on what presumably happened in the past. And then, of course, they find out that that is not what happened in the past, and it causes a tremendous upheaval in society. And the question is whether do you reveal that truth in order to expose what really happened, and then cause all the chaos that's going to occur and the upheaval, or do you still keep it a secret, knowing that you're treating these people based on a lie? And that's I would love, we didn't have one of those episodes, but I would love to see an episode where the Star Trek heroes, as it were, encounter a circumstance or situation, whether it be people on a planet, a culture, a civilization, and they have to wrestle with the way in which that civilization is informed of information, and having to wrestle with facts and reality versus, complete and utter fantasy and make believe and lies and mistruths. And how do you get through and cut through all of that? How would they do that in a Star Trek episode? I would be fascinated to see how the writers could come up with a scenario of how they would deal with that. I think that's a very difficult thing to deal with.
And you were actually the actor. Okay, so we have two Vulcans that had a lot of screen time, Spock and yourself. And do you feel that Leonard Nimoy's portrayal of the Vulcan people, I think he kind of almost established the way Vulcans behave, but we got to see you portray not only a Vulcan that is of dark skin, because I don't think we had really seen because on a planet you're going to have variation in how people look depending on where they live. So did any of that influence as an actor, your portrayal of your character?
Well, my character was 100%. My character was 100% Vulcan, and Spock was only half. So Spock had to choose which half he wanted to be. And that's what drove his entire character. I mean, because he had to wrestle with that all the time. I didn't have to worry about that. So my confidence in myself as a Vulcan, I didn't have that issue. I didn't have that weight. I didn't have that monkey on my back. So I could be as comfortable in my skin as I wanted to be. And I think that gives you a little bit more flexibility when you're dealing with human beings, and having to having to understand human beings, and perhaps having to even tap into their rationale for solving a problem to be able to do that. I might be a little bit more patient. I might be a little bit more understanding of the human condition because there's no threat to me. I'm 100% Vulcan. And my objective as an actor was to portray the Vulcan character as it had been established prior by Spock, because otherwise, nobody's going to buy it. It's very specific. It's not a new character that's just being established, so there's no history. It's not a human type character. It's not a character who has emotions. Their emotions are simply not shown and not portrayed, and they do not succumb to them. They operate on logic. And if I don't do that on screen convincingly, well, I'm in big trouble. May not have a job after the first month. So,
and I do like how you portrayed Tuvok when he was going through mental degradation due to age and so forth, like how Mark Leonard did the same thing with Sarek.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Because They're apparent not immune to the changes in physiology and age and maladies that might occur amongst their species. They would have something, Achilles heels in there somewhere, physiologically, that would have to be dealt with in their culture. So,
Okay, so I have another question from the chat. What are your thoughts about artificial intelligence development as it relates to astronomy and or how it relates to artistry and the craft of acting?
well, as far as the aspect of astronomy and the science of astronomy, um, AI is going to be absolutely instrumental in our advancements in all the fields of science. There's no question about it. That cat's out of the bag, and it's only going to get more and more sophisticated. There's a theory that human intelligence may have topped out. There's a theory that I've heard and read that the human intelligence may be at its pinnacle, and that we may not be able to be able to go on beyond this point in terms of the level of our intelligence to be able to figure and solve and discover new things. So AI is going to, if that's the case, AI is going to be doing a lot of the heavy lifting for us in figuring things out, calculating, coming up with this, that, and the other thing. AI is going to be able to operate on its own. It's going to be autonomous in terms of working to discover and working to develop in terms of research in almost every field. AI is going to be used. And there's no looking back on any of that, man. And I think it can be a very, very useful tool. Yes, it can be misused. Yes, it can be abused. Yes, it can be a pain in the ass. But at the end of the day, that's it. You have to live with that. As sure as there's oxygen to breathe, it ain't going anywhere. It's going to happen. As far as the acting goes, unfortunately, the background actors are going to be replaced first by CGI. And secondly, there's probably going to be lead actors and principal characters that are going to be replaced. We're already watching movies now where they've regressed them in age all the way back to 30 years ago. And it's
Horrible.
convincing. Yes, it's
Like
convincing.
Carrie Fisher.
Yes, Tom Hanks in this other movie that just came out. Same thing. It's already happening. And eventually, as people say, well, people aren't going to ever, only going to watch AI images on the screen. I beg to differ, because a 5-year-old is not going to know the difference. 5-year-old is not going to know the difference of what used to be on the screen. They're only going to see what is on the screen right now, so they'll be used to it. And as far as getting around being on a live talk show or on the red carpet, that could be a trick. I don't know how they managed to do that, but as far as the screen goes, that is going to happen. It's already happening now.
Yeah.
They do so much. Half the movies you watch now, this is especially the action, sci-fi, whatever, the fantasy, that's all that's post work. So that is going to eventually going to change. It's going to creep into every single aspect of our lives. It's already started, and it's not going to stop. Um, it kind of is what it is for those people who are growing up, as it were. I'm at, getting close to I've only got 25 years maybe left, whatever. So we're on our way down the path. The people who are coming up, my daughter and her kids, whatever it comes out to, they're the ones that have to deal with this stuff, firsthand. And there ain't going to be any getting around it.
Yeah. Okay, so another question was, are you planning on working on any more video games or animated shows or movies in the near future?
It has nothing to do with my plans. Oh, except for, nope, I can't say that. It has nothing to do with my plans. It has to do with what comes to me. I have my own projects. I have pitched my projects here and there. I am working with producers on several. I don't like producing. I only like directing. I hate producing. Let somebody else do that job. So the producing of pitching, getting financing, trying to sell the damn thing when it's done, that's all somebody else's work. I'll work on the creative end with the writers, create the projects, I'll direct the projects, and that's all I want to do. I do have a project that I'm working on that I'm supposed to direct next year, probably late spring, early summer, fingers crossed. Once they have the actors locked in, it's a $5 million project with Netflix. It's a creature flick with based on Greek mythology. Takes place today in contemporary times. There are some flashbacks, but it's a contemporary, I want to say crime drama, but a creature flick, and it's going to be pretty cool. We get it up and running. So far, it hasn't been done. That is the only thing I have that's on the burner right now that's pretty hot. It just needs to be sealed with the lead actors. I don't handle the casting. The producers are handling the casting. The studio is Netflix. They have to approve the lead actor in order to get the financing in place. Once that's done, we have a start date. Everything kicks in at that point. That is out of my control. Auditions for acting gigs, out of my control. When the stuff happens, they just email me or call me and bingo, we go do it or we don't go do it. So that's all it is, as far as projects and things like that go.
Okay. Well, thank you very much.
Mhm.
We do have a commemorative speaker's mug that we're going to send you in gratitude for your participation tonight. So after our session, we'll communicate with you offline to get your address or your preferred address.
Great.
Let's see. I
Thank
don't
you.
see anything else in the chat. Oh, wait, I just got a big thing in the chat. Oh, your question is, I work on the morning announcements at my school, and once a year we interview a very important person for our special movie episode. Is there an email that we can contact you at to potentially have you on the show as our guest?
Yeah, there's my website has my email address on it.
Okay, I'll type the
My
website in the
website, it's timrusswebpage.com. If you just Google my
okay.
name, it's going to come up.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
it's on the
so
last page,
mm,
contact information. Yeah, of
yeah,
my
if you go to
website.
was it Wikipedia also, if you scroll to the bottom, it has all of your links and so
All the
forth.
links and stuff, yeah. So you can find my website very easily. And it's the last page of the website. It'll have my email address. You can email me there to get a hold of me. Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
Okay. Well, it is now 8 o'clock Eastern time, so I'm gonna, I guess, bring Terry back on. If Terry, Rich, can you put all three of us on the screen together? And I want to personally thank you, Mr. Russ, for being here with us tonight. It was a unique treat for me to be able to interview someone who has done so much in his career, not only for amateur astronomy and acting and songwriting and music. You're a very good singer. I was listening to quite a bit of your music, and I was first introduced to you in Star Trek, but I noticed you were also in iCarly and you were in Spaceballs of all things. You must have been very young at that time. So,
Yes, Spaceballs. Yes, it's inescapable, that movie. It will follow me until I'm dead, I think. In the interim time, the only reason that I've been involved in a number of these things, whether it be astronomy and music, acting, directing, these kind of things, I have been doing them for a combination of 50 years. And within that time, all of them have been running on a parallel track. So it wasn't like I, went 30 years and then picked up something and went another 30 years and picked up something else. No, they were all going more or less at the same time. Acting and music, same time, and then astronomy and then directing and stuff down the line. And all of that's been several decades of each one of these things where it was all going at the same time. So it wasn't in steps. It just happened all together.
you
But yeah,
you inspire me to do great things.
well, it just depends on what your interests are. You could
Interesting.
do 20 things in that lifetime. We have enough time to do it nowadays. You just have to have an interest in it. If you don't
Mhm.
have an interest, it's never going to happen. So if you're fascinated by, collecting certain things, or fascinated by this or that hobby, or, mountain climbing, or whatever in the hell it is you want to do, you have to have the interest in it, the passion for it. And then once you do that, it's cake and ice cream after that. And then it's just a matter of time. If you're, 85 and you decide you want to go paragliding, I don't know. That may not be the time you want to jump off into that. Younger might be better. So, it's, you know,
Well,
and I actually did try paragliding once. It was an absolute blast. I I stopped doing that because I was on the show, so I couldn't do it anymore. But there you go. All right.
yeah, I did the same thing. I did some skydiving once, and my family told me I was no longer allowed to do that, so I had to stop. But I want to add our thanks Tim, to a fascinating hour. This is exactly what we, we all share a passion for astronomy here.
Yes.
And we love to see the way in which it can, through outreach, through sidewalk astronomy, through things such
Yes.
as that, we can try to bring more people into appreciating the pure awe of astronomy. As you say, you can't make everybody into an amateur astronomer, but you can awaken them to really what's out there, and looking up at a dark sky. I love experiencing people looking at a truly dark sky for the first time and realizing
Yes.
what's up there. And it's always up there. It's up there in the middle of Los Angeles. You just can't see it. But
Yes.
anyway, I want to thank you again so much for this. This was a fascinating hour. Loved hearing you, and thank you for giving us your time to do this. So thank you very much.
Okay. You're welcome. I appreciate it very much, guys. Thank you very much. I'm glad you enjoyed it. And for those of you who are starting out in astronomy, I hope you grab a telescope and start participating, because it's an absolute blast. Yeah.
Okay, great.
Have a good one, guys. Take care of
Okay.
yourself.
Take care.
Everybody take
Bye-bye
care,
now.
Tim. Everybody take care. And that's our third installment of the Far Out Journal Club. Goodbye, everybody. Thank you.
Bye-bye now.
Bye.